Casey from Casey Grandpa Tech, where this geeky grandpa is going to talk to you about tech, or grandpa having fun with tech, or tech solutions. Hey, anyway, listen, I want to talk to you about electronic vehicles, EV vehicles. They've been growing and growing in popularity, and there are basically two types, electronic vehicles and hybrid vehicles. But what are the pros and what are the cons of these two vehicles? And what kind of things can you expect to have with them? And what kind of problems can you have them? The pros, the cons. Let's get into that. Before we get into that, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and we'll get into it. Years ago, the revolution came that we need to save the planet, to reduce emissions, and to, of course, improve air quality. And, of course, electric vehicles became a staple in our lives. Tesla, of course, being the major company that involved itself and became the standard for electric vehicles. Of course, now other manufacturers have begun to do it. So, basically, let's go over some of the basics of what an electric vehicle is. What are the major differences between a hybrid? And what are the things that you may not know about that may make you decide one or the other? So let's talk about the major difference. An electric vehicle, of course, is a battery-powered vehicle that runs on a battery, and you have to charge it. And that can be done at a charging station or at your home. Now, the hybrid, of course, has a gasoline engine, and it has a battery pack also, which you can charge. And if the battery gets low, it'll switch over to an engine, which will charge the battery at the same time while it allows you to drive. So let's talk about more. Let's talk about some of the differences, pros and cons between electric vehicles and a hybrid. Obviously, they're both fuel efficient. They're both going to give you a less of an emissions, but let's talk about some of the differences. Both of them have a lithium-ion battery. Of course, the electric car has a larger one, and the hybrid one has a smaller one. The range with the electric vehicle, of course, is going to run anywhere from 200 to 600 miles, depending upon how you're driving, right? No big deal. Now, the other thing that you have to consider is, of course, the one car, of course, once you get the electric vehicle, you have to charge it. If you're taking a long drive, let's say that's longer than your range, you're going to have to find a charging station or do something else. Where the hybrid one will continue to run, because once the battery has been exhausted, it'll switch over to the engine, which will now run the car and begin to charge your battery back up. But now a lot of people were saying, oh, well, gas prices are higher, and now I don't have to stop at the gas station. Look at how much money I'm saving. And we'll look at that in a second. One of the things that a lot of people didn't realize and about the cost of these units is that, number one is, with the cost of fuel going up as it did, so did the price per kilowatt. And in some states, the price of electric to charge those vehicles has gone so that now charging that vehicle, an EV vehicle, whether it be the hybrid or the EV, has gotten where the price of using gasoline is actually cheaper. They were saying that the average cost of charging an EV vehicle last year, before everything went crazy, was $937, and the price for a hybrid per year to charge it was $800. But in some states, the price now to charge an EV vehicle is almost as high as $1,500, and it's cheaper if you had a gasoline vehicle or using a hybrid, because the price of gasoline has come down. It's something to consider. The other thing you have to consider, okay, is insurance costs. Remember that those vehicles cost more money. What does that mean? That means that the cost to repair them is also going to be higher. So if you get into a car accident, it's going to cost the insurance company more money. So you have to look at what the collision cost and other add-ons is going to be in your total cost of ownership. The other thing, of course, is remember that the battery in those units is very, very expensive. So once you've paid off your car, your resale value may not be as great as you think it's going to be, because if your battery has failed, you're going to have to replace that battery. And with a cost factor anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000 to replace it, you may have to junk the car. Now, another thing you may want to be aware of is the charging ports on most of these vehicles, okay, is either in the front or the back. It's on the same side. And yes, you can use a Tesla plug on another vehicle. The issue comes into if you go to a Tesla charging station and that one is optimized for that, and you're using a different type of vehicle, you may have to turn your car sideways to be able to get the cord long enough to plug into these stations. And if all those stations are full, or you take up 2 of those charging stations, you're going to have a lot of people looking at you, right? So that's an issue. I don't know if you've heard the story of the man who he had to go visit his sister in another state, and the range of his Tesla was 300 miles, but he had to go 600 miles, and he couldn't find a charging station, and eventually he got stuck. And someone pulled over on the road, and, "Can I help you?" And he goes, "Yes, could you take me to a gas station?" The man looks at, "You have a Tesla. Why would you want gas?" But he didn't say anything, so he took the man to a gas station, and he had a bag, and inside the bag he had a gas tank. And he brings him back to his car, and he's like, now what is he going to do with this gas on a non-gas powered car? And the man opens his trunk, and what happens? He pulls out a little portable generator, puts the gasoline in the generator, and plugs it in and starts to charge his vehicle. And he says, "Thanks for your help." Those are some things you'll have to consider. So, you may have to, if you're owning one of these EV vehicles and you tend to take a long ride, you may want to carry a portable generator with you, because God forbid you find it where the charging stations are not running. Now, the other problem that is a big problem that's been happening, and maybe you've heard this, a lot of EV vehicles, because of the lithium-ion batteries, if during a flood, such as salt water, like we've had here in Florida with the hurricanes, and a lot of these cars were submerged or badly covered with water, a lot of these electric vehicles started exploding and catching on fire. And you don't want to be anywhere near an electric vehicle with a lithium-ion fire, because they burn 4 to 6 times hotter than a regular vehicle. Once that fire starts, basically your vehicle's done. There's no saving it. And you have to really realize that if you're living near the ocean and you have an EV vehicle, you have to really consider, what happens if there's a flood? My EV vehicle might be destroyed. Which leads to the other solution, or the other problem that you might be having. Of course, let's go back to the charging port. And that is that, as we've known, we've had a lot of bad weather lately. And power has gone out in various places. And we had a terror attack in Baltimore, and the power was out for 5 days. And if you have an EV vehicle, and you want to use that vehicle, once you used up the charge, unless you've got one of these portable generators, you're kind of like, you're kind of stuck. With a hybrid vehicle, obviously, would be able to continue running as long as you could get gas for it. Now, the other thing is, California is considering, we're going to ban all gas-powered vehicles and make it so that you can only have an EV vehicle. At the same time, they're refusing to build more power stations, right? And because they're not allowing power, they're having rolling blackouts. Well, if you have let's put it the word, shit out of luck. So these are things that you need to consider. Now, the other thing you need to consider is, and I don't know if I mentioned it already, insurance cost. Your car costs more money, right? And if it costs more money, well, guess what? It's going to have the insurance rate for collision and damages is going to be higher, because the cost to repair that vehicle is going to be much higher. And the probability that your car in a major accident will be totaled is much higher. And the reason being, of course, because the battery in these cars can cost $12,000, $15,000. And let's say the car is 4 years old and it only has a book value of $4,000. They're not going to repair that car. They're going to total it, and you're going to have a total loss. So these are things you need to be considering when you're considering buying an EV vehicle or a hybrid vehicle, because number one, the cost of electricity is increasing steadily. If you're living near an area where it floods, and you could have possibly your car being exposed to salt water, you don't want to have that car. If you are in an area like California where they have rolling blackouts and you may not be able to charge your car, that's another problem. And the other situation, of course, is, again, if terror attacks. If power goes out in your area, how do you charge it? So these are things you need to consider in looking at your vehicle. And the last thing, of course, is that the resale value on hybrid and versus a regular vehicle. Hybrid, it has been discovered now that hybrid vehicles have a higher resale value than electric vehicles, because people are becoming aware that if they bought the car and it's 5 years old, they're probably going to have to change that battery, where they know that in the hybrid vehicle, if the battery goes on them, they can keep using it. So these are the things you need to consider. And anyway, I hope this information has been helpful for you. This is Casey from Casey Grandpa Tech Out. Please give me a like. Please give us a share. And consider subscribing to the channel. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers at this time in this video, and every subscription helps us. Hey, listen, I thank you much for watching, and until next time, you have a great day.